Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? So, we're going to continue studying this building right here, which is in England. And I will also be sending out 2 letters to England, coincidentally, tomorrow. I believe they're both in England. And that will just be double checking and verifying addresses so that we can write back and forth. So, I'll be sending 2 letters to England. I'm wondering, I'll look later on tonight and see if one of them is close to this area. So, we're talking about now, this is the very first church in England, cathedral, and it was built around a place where Jesus went and his mother Mary went. And at that house and location, excuse me if I'm not telling it completely right, if I'm slandering the story a little bit, but at that house, a very humble abode, they built a church after Jesus and Mary died. I believe Joseph made the church for his wife that passed away. And later, at some point in time, they built a stone church around the original church. So they encased the original abode where Jesus and Mary stayed at one point in time in Jesus' life. And it's the first original church. It's the first church made by Joseph. It's the first church by a man. And it's this incredibly beautiful building. And it was destroyed in 1539. And we're now getting to the point of the story of how the church was destroyed. And we're going to talk about a couple different things here. Okay? Now, they're saying it's very old. We don't know what it looks like because there's only drawings of it. This is, 500 years ago. But it's not too bizarre or odd to think that a building like this would be 500 years ago that would look like this, being that we have buildings that look exactly like this that are still standing today. Correct? So it's not that bizarre to comprehend. It is kind of bizarre, though, 500 years ago they would just destroy this building. And then now let's get into that. What happened? King Richard came in and said that he declared that he was going to be the supreme head of the church. And Abbot Whitney at the time was there, and he said, oh, okay, sure. But when the king came and they said, it's time to surrender your monastery, he said, no, I don't think so. It's against my conscience. He said, no, this is the story. And in September of 39, a few years, well, that would be then, 1539, okay, before its destruction, they went to the abbey, the king did, to inspect it because they're like, what do you mean you're not giving it to us? And they found a book. I wonder what kind of a book it was. It really doesn't say here, but I believe in history it is a different book than that, like a Bible book. Because, he's now in charge of the church, the king. And don't certain people just love President Donald Trump as a king? We've seen some QAnons say that he's even God himself or Jesus Christ even. So a king can influence the people enough to make the people believe that there are a God. But we're at the point where the king found a book and they gave him an offer. An oath of supremacy was offered to the abbot. But when he refused to take the oath, he was taken to the Tower of London. And we just looked at a picture of the Tower of London, right? That was made out of rubble. Not these big, huge, beautiful stones. But even though this place was... Now, I could understand why the king would want this place. If his place was made out of rubble, why wouldn't you want a place like that? Now, unfortunately, he was arrested. And on November 14th, he was taken guilty to another place, and they retried him again. And unfortunately had a very terrible. Now again, this story is, here's a man of God trying to have the church taken from him. Found a book, most likely the Bible. And they're saying, are you going to declare your, even though it's not saying it right here, but this is the story. I mean, are you going to give up your religion and follow the king's religion? And he said no. And so there was a few others with him. They were all drawn on hurdles to the Tor, hanged, disemboweled, beheaded, and quartered. His head was set up over the gate, and his quarters were boiled in pitch. And each one of his quarters went into a different direction and town. All right? And people say, I'll never take the mark of the beast. Okay. Because you in your head think that it will be a simple beheading. At worst. But you don't think about all the things that would come in between, do you? Do you? You don't know what you would do when you're being taken to the Tower of London. Have you ever been to that place and seen the torture devices that they've got inside that building? I have. I've seen the stuff that's in there. You would not want to go there, especially if you pissed off the king that wanted your house. You will have nothing and be happy. I will give up everything freely if you just don't take me to the Tower of London. Now, but I want to talk now. So we're looking at this, and we can see this picture here. Here is after the ruins. The king came in, was pissed off. They destroyed everything, and then sold the pieces, divided up the treasures, and everybody else that was in there. The servants, the lands were sold. The monks and the servants, they were just dismissed, even though they knew all the stuff that was going on in this building and all this other stuff. They were just let to go free, as it says here. So it's just going to be your preachers and pastors that will be held responsible. You, they don't care about. You think that's true? But now we're talking about how they sent all the treasures and build and stuff. And then the buildings were then broken up and sold in pieces. The destruction of the Roche Abbey, described by eyewitnesses of the fate, may tell us the fate of the abbey. Okay, so this is eyewitnesses. This is really big. This is big information, because the story is, here's the building, and then it got ruined. This is what it looks like now. And this is a print from 1800. What is that? 200 years, basically, 180 years after it was destroyed. And this is a drawing from 1817. Okay. But now let's describe eyewitnesses of the fate. Remember, these are great, big, huge, incredible, solid marble buildings. Incredible works of art. Because it's not that they're telling us that they are. They've told us how they're built, who built them, what tools they used, and how much these stones weigh. Now, here it says, by eyewitnesses, some took service books that lied in the church and laid them in their hay, pictures, the windows, and stuff, and so much, and blah, 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 okay? And but when the yeomen and the gentlemen of the country had bought the timber of the church, for the church was the first thing that was put to the spoil. Nothing about a rock, not one single thing about a rock through this whole part about what the eyewitnesses say. They say even here, the houses down the street, which stood without the walls, which had more favor showed with them than the very church itself. And this was recorded in the books of Acts and Monuments. Now look, here is a modern day picture of it. Do they look similar